Hello and welcome to the IdeaCast interview series, episode number 165. My guest in this episode is Sam Stokes, and this is a part 2 with Sam. And if you haven't listened to episode number 163, part 1 with Sam, I would suggest you do. There's no hard and fast on it, but there's some continuity in the dialogue that we had in the first conversation where we left off and then where we pick up here, but this one stands on its own just fine. So really enjoyed listening to Sam and garnering thoughts and ideas from her in conversation, in dialogue. So I appreciate her very much for that, and I also appreciate her music, and I will have links down below in the description field for you to discover the music if you haven't done so already. Thank you so much for your presence. I appreciate you all as well, and enjoy this conversation with Sam. And I'd like to welcome back Sam Stokes to the IdeaCast interview series. This is a part 2 of a lovely conversation that we had. I encourage you, if you haven't seen part 1, to go check that out, because there's going to be a little bit of continuity. We're going to pick up kind of where we had stopped in the first conversation and go wherever neither one of us is worried about where we go. And but welcome to you all in the audience. Appreciate your presence and your attention. So, Sam, you were talking about this phenomena of being canalized in these thoughts, these patterns and behaviors that are layers of our history that inform us of these things. And we had talked about that in the pre-meet, and I had mentioned a guy named Mark Miller who talked about the predictive processing, and he echoed what you were saying. So the cognitive science that is more or less being embraced validates what you're saying, and I think that's important. Everyone would benefit from hearing from that, because if we do feel like we're in a rut, we feel like we're stuck, and he goes so far as to say that, some of the gurus will say this, you are what you believe. And so if your narrative, if your salience mapping, you're searching out things in your ecosystem of information that sort of confirmation bias that sort of reinforce your pessimism, or they reinforce your anxiety, or like me, neurosis, like if I get scattered and stuff like that. So it is important to have this meta awareness of that and say, okay, and there are options, as you said a moment ago, or in part 1, that we are sovereign beings who have this judicial capacity to extricate ourselves from these patterns.
Yes, and I think a huge part of it is also like to take responsibility. Mm-hmm. How many times do we see people who are, 50, 60, 70 years old, and they completely, rid themselves of any responsibility because they're like, well, my parents did this, so this is why I'm this way, and that's it. And it's like, well, okay, cool. Your parents were probably very influential, of course, and, those circumstances, of course, were a leg up or a disadvantage, and they, had, certain conditioning influence. But at the same time, we have to at some point take that responsibility for our lives. If we are, mentally and cognitively and physically and all that stuff able to, I want to be very mindful that, there are those, of course, on the planet who, might never get to that place of that mental cognition. And so I don't refer to literally 100% of people, but I think, when we speak in broad strokes, like the majority of people, like we can take responsibility for our emotions. We can take responsibility for our actions, for our reactions, and for, stopping certain learned behaviors and saying, wait a minute, just because this was role modeled to me, just because this is what I have seen a million times, and this just because I've had this same reaction like 1,000 times, I can also now make a brand new choice. I can actually choose to do something very different from how I've ever done it before. And I think a very practical example, and I've talked about this before on social media and stuff, is one of my favorite kind of tools to kind of jumpstart the brain and jumpstart this kind of mindset is an adventure day. And so I always recommend, especially if you can do an adventure day by yourself, And it can absolutely, ideally be exactly where you live. So it's someplace that's familiar, but on this adventure day, you can't go to any place you've ever been before. So now all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm in this familiar place, which is patterns, habits, things that I do regularly, but I'm actually not allowed to go to the places that I've been before. I need to now venture into that spot that I've walked past 400 times, but I've never gone in that shop. Oh, I've always wanted to try that spot I've always wanted to try that beverage. Oh, cool. Let me go there. And that kind of curiosity and saying, oh, I'm going to actually make new choices intentionally, and I'm going to train my brain to be comfortable with me making a new choice in this like very fun and easy and low budget, low stakes kind of way. It's just saying, oh, I'm going to take my exact surrounding that I know, and now I'm going to all of a sudden make it brand new. Wow. Okay. What is that going to do for my brain? You know?
Yeah, yeah. And that is so awesome in the sense that if we go headlong into these personal transformation, you can do it type things, that you're going to run into resistance at this kind of subpersonal level. And that part of you is going to be like, hell no, like it knows that story, and the meta you, the cognitive you, the cortical you is like, no, I'm going to change, and I'm going to, be, what my teacher is telling me to be. But what you're doing is you're opening up an environment where that subpersonal or whatever that sublayer is experiencing it, and sort of disproving the calculus that this is new, but it's not threatening and it's not being forced on. So I like that you're opening up that space for exploration and novelty, because I think we, in our evolutionary story, are creatures that had to adapt, respond to novelty, or stochasticity, to use a fancy word, the chaos of the world at large. And so I love that. I love that is a safe, especially for people. As you acknowledged a moment ago, there are people on varying levels of varying psychic profiles, psychological profiles, that have to go their own way. And you and I talked about that in our pre-meet, that it's not a one-size-fits-all. So this is a really important thing that you're tapping into here, that I want to acknowledge and acknowledge to the audience, and let that go out, that if somebody is struggling and they went to those, those self-help programs, and it's like they kind of like, use a hammer rather than just opening a window. yeah, that kind of thing. Right. So here's to that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's saying, within my life as it is, because I think the thing is, we're looking at like shifting habits, and habits do not shift in a weekend retreat. Now, a weekend retreat might give us like, wow, amazing new ideas. And it might give us like a new framework or a new community, or, that's amazing. Like, all good. But I think it's like, wait, what does it look like now, setting very small, like, goals for myself within my life as it is? Because, it's like wherever you go, there you are, right? You're like, well, here I am. It doesn't matter if I'm on vacation. It doesn't matter if I'm in a new city. It doesn't, like, okay, how are we making new choices? And eventually it graduates, or not graduates, but it continues into the same conversation you have with a parent, a spouse, a sibling, a best friend. And you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like we've had this conversation like 100 times. Why do we keep doing this in circles and circles? And all of a sudden, if your brain is now comfortable with making a new choice, you then are like, you know what? I've said the same thing, and they've said the same thing, and we've had the same conversation. Wait, what's this other option that I haven't explored yet? And let me just try it. Let me go into that new coffee shop. Let me go into that new store. Let's see what happens. Oh, well, that went worse than than my old response. Okay, cool. Don't do that response. Okay,
right.
Next time. Oh, maybe that one's better, but it's about kind of creating that, because I think that like form of suffering, or that form of where people feel bogged down by life is that they feel like that ability to make these sovereign and independent and free choices is taken away from them. They feel like, I just have to do this, I have to do this. And it's like, wait a minute, we can just shift our mindset and we can approach this with a new perspective that might like change everything, you know?
Yeah.
But it's slow steps, and ideally it's like with joy, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe one other thought to include is that we can hold two things to be not just true, but to be possible at the same time. So there is the improvisational you, there is the you of that who has the audacity to go out, be that sovereign person who takes chances, goes to envelopes and edges and things like that. But there's also the you that can operate in an environment of habituation, routine, that which grounds you, so that they can both dance with each other. It's the tonos that's achieved. So
I love that you say that. Yeah. Discipline and sovereignty can coexist, right? Like our desire for routine and familiarity can coexist with our curiosity and wonder. And those two things they are not, non-exclusive or whatever. Like they are mutually exclusive. Those are totally in harmony together.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes we can feel, and it's like that edge we were talking about of like, you want to have that edge of like, oh, this is a little bit unfamiliar. This is a little bit different. Ooh, let me let me try this experience. And also, perfect example, how we started recording this today is you were like, I've never recorded this straight after the pre-meet. And it's like that little edge of unfamiliar, and yet at the same time, also within this like container and context of familiar, and that's, I think, that just ideal balance of, discipline and sovereignty.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And, I think there are people for which this comes naturally, that they are fluid enough in their identity, character profile, their psychic profile, whatever it is. And that's great, and those are the people that we see who are, kind of polymathic, and they love doing 5 different things, interests, disciplines, hobbies, pursuits, passions, whatever it is. But this speaks, I think, to those of us who are in maybe that middle ground where it takes a bit of gumption and moxie and all those other things to push oneself out into that. So, those people that are those polymathic people, though, can be inspirational, archetypal sort of embodiments of that. And I've heard that mentioned by people whom I respect to say it's good to look to the people who are doing that. You don't deify them, idolize them, or adore them. You just look and see what they're doing and pattern and see the affect, see that they're joy, right? I watch people who have careers and jobs that they're like, this isn't a job. I love what I do. And I'm like, I love that, and I aspire to that. And I've had, I used to joke that I was chronically self-employed most of my adult life, with small businesses and entrepreneurial things. And I got close to those things a lot of times, where I just really, really liked what I did. And so, imagining yourself, again, not vicariously, but just being inspired by those folks that have that thing going, that je ne sais quoi, going for themselves.
Yeah. And I think, it's that word is inspiration, right? Where it's like, anytime I've heard stories from people and I'm like, wait, what is possible? Wait, that's an option, and I think, the internet is so cool because it really is really expanding our field of possibilities. Because if you think about it, before the internet, it was like, maybe your form of expansion was if you were lucky enough to go to college, then you could have an opportunity to maybe expand, or if you were lucky enough to travel, you could maybe expand. But for the most of humanity, for most of the time, your existence was pretty much in your village with the people that you were probably mostly related to. And within the scope of what that town or village or community thought, like that's what was accessible to you.
Mm-hmm.
And, a handful of individuals, might have explored or gone beyond. But so I think it's very exciting, this idea of just planting little seeds of possibilities. Oh, I never thought that, that could be handled that way. Oh, I could do that way,
Yeah.
which is, to me, just the exciting part of it,
Yeah. Yeah. Again, knowing that there are people listening who could be struggling with that, and that this very thing is a catalyst, this very matter that you and I are sharing, and we're opening that space, and so yeah, and just to know, that
yeah,
you've got a safety net of for instances of people. Historically, right? So there's a lot of people who've passed on that really jazz me in every realm. And so it's not that you have to follow someone who is currently creating. That's what the historical record is for, is that you can go back in the canon and say, oh, this, especially like for women, like women's leadership and women's pioneering. I love that. I see that on, I have a Blue Sky account, and I see some of these historical women accounts that just bring up, like, today's the birthday of Annie Besant or somebody like that, who was a heretical woman uppity woman who did something in 1897 or something, or 3 or whatever, that just really just shifted things and broke things. And so, the history of our human enterprise, or whatever we are, is such a rich vein, a motherlode of all these kind of examples, right? That we can dig into. So no matter where you are on that spectrum, or that continuity, I
wanted to also, this came through, and I just really wanted to make sure that I include this in our conversation.
Sure.
And I appreciate you tapping into this, which is, if anybody listening to this right now is feeling lost, or feeling like it is the dark night of the soul, or is feeling like whatever, if it's new kind of spiritual, intuitive sensibilities, or if it's more psychological kind of like, like a mental health, mindfulness kind of awareness, whatever it looks like. I think the thing that I really want to kind of impart or to share is, and I've seen this with so many people that have been on this journey, is there's a version of you on the other side of this that is happy and healthy and balanced. And like, this moment right now might feel heavy, or it might feel all consuming, or it might feel disorienting, but like, and I know that can sound like, oh, okay, well, good for you, blah, 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 whatever. But like, I remember how angry and frustrated and sad, and I was getting 2 hours of sleep. I was having night terrors. Like, I was in this like horrible place a couple years ago, like literally just trying to, get through day-to-day stuff. And I remember just my entire intention was, I don't want this experience to be something that, how do I say it? Like, this isn't quite the right word, but like, that messes me up, so to say, for life. It was like, I want to move through this. And the image I kept having was, until the water runs clear. And I had people mentoring me saying, oh, just build up walls, just ignore it, just push it away. And I was like, nope. I was like, that's not what I'm being called to do. I was like, my spirit is being called to like really move through this, to feel this completely, to have, all of the sensory experiences of this, and to know that I will be at peace again one day. And I just really want to kind of impart that, that possibility. So people, if they are experiencing something, or they're moving through something, like, you will move through it, but there will be another side to this, so just, it'll, yeah.
Yeah, and that's you embodying the sage because you have walked through that fire. And I'll share too that, and we talked about this in the pre-meet, in 2011, and the closest thing I can define it, in recognizable terms is encephalopathy. I had this nasty something happened to my brain, and I thought I was going to be an invalid. I thought at 41 I was going to be in a nursing home, being fed, and was what my amor fati would be. Is like this is your new reality. And I managed to extricate myself from it. It was a horror show for years, not just days, weeks, or months, but years of horror show. It got better within a few months, but then it was still this lingering thing. So anyway, I now call it the master that showed up in my life. And it was a horror show, but in that horror show, I had a proof of concept that I will not give up. I will not resign myself to being the vegetable that goes to the nursing home and gets fed, because I could feel quite literally myself losing control and just disappearing. Like it was that horrifying. I'd be sitting on the couch and my perceptual world was just melting. It was like a really bad drug trip. And so I got through that, and I got through the residuals over the next intervening, or the few years that came after that, to where I came back to a 90-something% normal. But I am so grateful for that showing up in my life, because it straightened me right out. And it afforded me this capacity to fall in love with life again, to appreciate things. And it's like, you talk to anybody that was given a death sentence with cancer, it's like if they made it, and they're one of the outliers that survived stage 4 metastatic cancer, they're so grateful, right?
Yes.
And so I'm saying that to reinforce what you said.
Yes.
This is not platitudinous. This is lived experience.
I love that you say that. And I was literally just talking about that with a beautiful, wonderful songwriter friend this week. And she had a small event happen that kind of shifted her trajectory a little bit. But it led to her being able to do much more songwriting, much more artistry. And we were talking about this mindset. And I love that you say that, because it was literally the same ecosphere, whatever, this week, which was how do we, and it's such a thing, you don't want to be like happy-go-lucky, like, oh my gosh, everything's, amazing. And you're like completely overlooking, let's say, bad behavior or like abusive behavior. Like, it's not about that kind of blind joy, but it's about this like deep gratitude and saying, oh, wow, okay, how do I view life circumstances or illness or accident or whatever it is as some sort of gift? I don't know why it's a gift, but how is this here to teach me, to help me grow? Because I know I would not be the person I am today and having these conversations today had I not experienced what I experienced in 2020. So it's like, wow, like, or as, like you were saying with your experience in 2011, it's like that mindset of, okay, I don't quite understand this and I don't understand what I'm navigating through, but also I can see this with the lens of gratitude, because clearly there's something that I'm meant to learn from this experience. This is going to help me shift in some way, and the body likes to things like that to us pretty regularly. A classic one is like, if we listen to the foods that we eat and we listen to how those foods make us feel, I think we can be pretty receptive to, oh, are we putting foods in our body that are helping us, stay sustained and healthy and well? Or are we creating a problem for ourselves down the line if we like ignore that those foods are not making our body feel great? And so it's like that opportunity, that invitation of like, oh, cool. Okay. What am I here to learn? What am I here to, express and how am I supposed to grow through this journey? And so, I love that you shared that. That's awesome. I'm sorry you had that experience, of course. Obviously, I don't wish that upon you or upon anyone else, so I don't mean it in that sense, but I appreciate your mindset that you shared.
Oh, yeah, and I'm happy to share. I want to do one thing. I want to hit pause real quick because I think my Bluetooth is failing me, so I'm going to go to maybe a tethered thing, so hold on one second here. Okay, to the audience, I had to do a little technical thing and put new headphones on. So, but it gave us an opportunity to segue into something new, or not new, but maybe revisit where we were in the first conversation about Sam's musical process and the creative process. And we agreed that we would mine more of that out in this conversation here. So, Sam,
Yeah.
you had mentioned the writing and the production and so forth that's involved in generating a song or birthing a song. So share that and
Yeah. Well, I think so. I like to say this too because I want to demystify a little bit of this process for creators. And I
okay.
really want to also share, like, I think sometimes we think, a great songwriter or a great artist or whatever is just like naturally born that way or naturally talented in that way.
Okay.
And I have to say for myself, I can very clearly see like how I wrote songs, like and it's really all kind of connected to 2020, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
It's connected to this like traumatic event, this like spiritual awakening. Like there really was this, which isn't surprising because, there was time and there was, uncertain circumstances and all that on the planet. But, I like to kind of share this part because I feel like I was not a great songwriter and I did not feel tapped in. I didn't know what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, there was no conversation of God in my life. There was no conversation of spirit. There's no conversation of like the soul. Like these are all things that are very new to my vocabulary and my experience
Mm-hmm.
and to the artistry. So I like to describe it too as like, I've been doing music. My family is all musician. My grandparents are musicians. Like I come from a very music filled family.
Okay.
But when it comes to like songwriting, I feel like I was exposed and I was kind of learned this very laborious and very logical left brain approach
Mm-hmm.
to writing a song. We're going to
Okay.
sit down and we have a thesaurus and it's going to be very this and here's the thing and I'm not saying that that's bad. Like there are a lot of great songs that are that and that's great. And there's a lot of hit songs that are that. And I think a lot of, there's the craft of songwriting in that sense. And that has its place for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what was really curious for me was how do I receive songs? So there's a way to write them. That's fine. How do I consistently create space and create a way for me to receive songs and ideas and feel like I can easily access that space? And again, without substances and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But how can I tap into that space to like receive these downloads? And so the first time that I ever experienced that for myself was maybe 2021 or something. I was sitting out at the community pool, and I took one piece of paper and a pen with me to the pool, and I was just exploring a lot of ideas. And then I ripped the paper out from my journal, and I sat there, and I literally just wrote a whole song. And I was like, what is that? And I never had that experience before. You have to, like, I really want to share that. And I know that there are some artists who are gifted like that from the beginning, or, maybe that was how I was at one point, and then we get that kind of socially broken out of us, or there's all sorts of reasons that can happen. But for me, it was like, whoa, how that's cool.
Yeah.
How can I do that more regularly? How can I feel more connected to that flow state more regularly? And so instead of necessarily training the skill of a thesaurus and songwriting in that sense, how can I train the skill of being an open vessel?
Right.
And that's the thing that I thought was interesting. And now from that comes like edits and all that kind of stuff. But that was like the first time, and that song's the final song of the album, Like a Feather, coming out in September.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, I didn't change a word, you know, I just went in, I started playing something on the guitar, and it was like, that is it, you know, like, okay, good, that's it. I'm not gonna touch it. But then it kind of created this curiosity of like, okay, how do we, first off, how do I do that more regularly? And how do I now share this space with other musicians and share this now in the recording space? Because like we were kind of talking about, like, there's someone who can sing really well, and then there's Frank Sinatra, who you can hear him smile while he's singing on a record.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not watching a video and you just, I don't know if you've had that experience particularly, but I remember the first time I was like 13 or 14, so clearly child of musicians, listening to Frank Sinatra and hearing him smile and thinking, oh my gosh, that is so profound.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what does that even mean? What does that look like? How do we now channel that into a performance?
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's, for me, mostly I really focus on like the vocal performance, the lyrical performance, but it's saying, okay, how do we now tap into that emotion? And then, like, let's say even if a live performance, I'm doing 15, 20 songs in a row, how do I allow for the energy of each song to be its own, like if each song was a specific color on the rainbow, mm-hmm. how do I allow for each of those songs to be that color of that rainbow, so that I'm not doing a whole, you've been to those shows where you have a whole night and you're like, oh my gosh, this person has just been purple the whole night. There was no emotional development. There was no variety. There was, you know, and they could have played different tempos and different vibes, but versus, whoa, that was, you know,
mm-hmm. Spectral. Yeah.
A spectral journey. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you referenced that incident with the writing, it brought me back to what you were saying with the musicians on stage, and you find yourselves at the end of the song like, where were we during all of this? You know, and it's like that flow that opens up, and you step out of the way, as you've said previously. You know, that's just so fascinating that comes through that way, right? Yeah.
Yes.
The mind is an odd creature.
Yes.
But thank goodness for that too, because and thank you for, you know, the demystification process, because not only, you know, may we have someone in our in attendance that's working on some of the other things that we've talked about in terms of the individuation process or the breaking molds and things like that, but there's hopefully going to be some aspiring musical people here. So here's to that as well, that you can be that sage again for that and share this. And I dabble around in making soundscapes, so I'm listening to, you know, yeah. I love synthesizers, and it takes no musical talent. I mean, it does to do good, but you can plot around and bleep and bloop and stuff on synthesizer. So if anybody's like me with no talent expressed or brought out, that, you know, get either I have a physical synthesizer, but I also have the online free, you know, like you can go to FL Studio and get a free version just to plot around with and start. So tangent here, but that's if you are curious and you want to light the spark. And then I ended up getting the pro version of FL Studio, and you can get virtual synthesizers, you can get all kinds of gizmos and lights and bells, and go down major, they call it GAS, gear acquisition syndrome. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Go for it if you're on the fence.
And that's so important. I love that you say that again, because, you know, I think that we've become this like society of like, I have to either be hyper specialized or not at all. Mm-hmm. And it's like, wait a minute, we don't have to be a Michelin star chef in order to know how to make a nice meal.
Right.
We don't have to be selling out stadium tours in order to sing or play an instrument. Like that's like our human form of expression. A bird in the morning, you know, doesn't have to have a stadium for it to just say, it's morning. You know, sure, be so happy, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hope too, is like, hey, like this just playing around. I mean, I'm sure like you feel so great after playing with the synths, and just that's its own flow state. And it's like, wait a minute, this is just great for me, and this is great for my internal landscape. And what a beautiful, creative, productive thing that I've done here. Or gardening, right? We don't have
Right.
to like, have some massive agriculture, a 300-acre ranch
Hmm.
to want to be able to grow a few fruits and vegetables in our yard.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure. Um oh gosh, it just flew the coop. My little thought that I had. But yeah, I think I'm trying to bring back the idea, like you said, that this is amateur night, and you're safe in your home. I'm safe when I'm plodding around with the stuff that I do. I do have a what do you call it, Bandcamp thing, so people can listen to it, but
Ooh,
which is audacious, right, to do
please,
that. But
no, no, it's not. Oh my God,
no, but
that's
I
so
mean in a good way, that I'm confident in
cool.
myself. I don't care if anybody thinks it sucks or it's great. I have gotten, one or two things that, oh, that's nice, blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah,
just to do it, just to put it out there, to be vulnerable, right?
yeah,
And to be, as you say in on your webpage, that you are in servitude. And I take that in a broad sense, that you are in service to the music, you are in service to your people who appreciate your music, but you are also in service to creation and creativity, and that's where you have to be vulnerable. And so that's what I did with Bandcamp. Is I publish everything I'm considered public, worthy of publishing. But so anyway, that's closing another loop, is that
yeah.
you stand by what you do. And if it's like make a painting. If you draw a painting, or you go do, like, do you remember The Big Lebowski, where
Oh
where
yeah.
where where the dude's landlord was doing that improv dancing, and they're all John Goodman and Steve Buscemi and Jeff Bridges are in the audience, and
Oh man.
this poor guy's like really being himself, and he's doing his
Yeah.
thing, and Goodman's like,
Oh,
well, when we're done with what have you, then we'll go up to wherever it was where the kid lived, Larry Sellers or whatever. So I just love that scene, because the poor guy's just like doing his
oh,
thing. Be that
very
man,
cool.
be that one. You don't have to be
Yeah.
that weird, but yeah, yeah, you can. Be that weird. So anyway,
Yes.
do it, do it.
Yes, because we are like here to like, I think it's like just that joy of being alive, and it's like to be human. And I think, as AI, and I don't want to say this in this sort of buzzword, but I think we're going to have this very fascinating, like existential thing of like I hear now more than ever, people use the word human in a
Mm,
way that they were not using 5 years ago. This
yeah,
sense
that's
of
true.
like, I'm talking about this is made by humans, or this is, which is such an interesting, um, demarcation of something, because, it sounds kind of spacey, like, oh, there's aliens or there's humans or whatever, but it's really like there's technology and there's humans.
Yeah,
And so
it's
all of a sudden it becomes a question of like, wait, like, what are the things that make us human? And what is the point of this experience? And what are the
mhm.
things, and how much do we actually need versus what's distractions from our ability to live fully balanced, nourished, thoughtful, healthy lives?
Mhm.
And similarly, it's like when we think of music, who's to predict? I don't know. There's going to be as many, I think, AI artists that are chart topping as there will be, people going fully organic, human made kind of things. Uh, but I do look forward, and I do hope to be a steward of uh, music made by humans. And like, if you listen to any of this album, any of it, it's like, it's modern, and it is, pop rock, and it's this very modern sound, but it's all people, playing their instruments, and it is that synergy, and it's people in a room having a very good time together and capturing that essence into the music, so that there is some sort of, ideally some sort of cathartic experience,
Yeah.
that as we move through it, we say, oh, wow. Like, and that's, to me, it's like, Stevie Wonder Inversions, you know, like one of the most perfect albums. I don't know if you've spent time with it, but it's like you could listen to it start to finish and then listen to it again start to finish and be like, why is this a brand new album? I didn't hear all of those other things. What's all this stuff here?
Right.
Oh my God, what's that? And then you
where did that come from?
To finish, totally new album again, you know, and that kind of human invention and also just creative spirit, I think is, in my opinion, something that's totally been lost in the pop era of the last 10, 15 years. This like overly perfected, overly, you know,
like produced,
where it sacrifices our humanity for the sake of, you know, perfected ideal kind of thing. And yeah, I'm here for the rawness and the beauty and the, you know, full life force of it all.
Yeah, excuse me. And I think when we encounter the proliferation of, in the domain of music, the generation of again, AI music, music, I guess, and I've seen some evidence of this on YouTube where people will reimagine songs, so it'll be a Tool song reimagined as Motown or something, you know, some weird mashup kind of thing. And, you know, that's interesting and it's novel. But I also think when people are sincerely intending to create music, but using prompts, using criteria and things like that, I think it'll give us an opportunity to examine that and say, you know, as you've mentioned just now, that maybe perhaps I'll choose to go see fleshy, vulnerable people with their little quirks and their little, you know, tics and things like that in generating the music, because I think, and you could certainly code for, you know, these anomalies or these little tics, but then you know, it's a simulacra. It's not really, you know, so for me, and maybe I'm showing my age and maybe I'm showing my preference and I'm imposing that, but I almost think it's one of those moments where you have to stand and examine it and say, oh, okay, it's a novelty and it's interesting. And like I said, like I've checked things out on YouTube that are, you know, just again, send ups or reimagining of things, like mixing genres and stuff. Again, you know, like putting Tool here or, you know, Slayer there and all this kind of stuff and experimenting. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's cool. And it's imaginative and hats off to the person that set up the prompts to do that. But I think
I would argue to that point, it completely bypasses the experience. It just says, here's a finished sandcastle, and it completely bypasses the joy of the kids playing in the sand and building the castle together. Yeah. And the marvel of, oh my God. And it's like, if we just want the finished product, which, hey, for commercial music or like for, you know, whatever, that's fine. Go for it. Like, you know, that's totally cool. But when it comes to like the act of playing it together, it's like, there is nothing like, you know, and we talked about jazz and stuff a lot tonight, but like, there's nothing like seeing a bunch of jazz musicians, you know, just play together and just have this experience, or to be in that and to play and bounce off of each other. Like the joy of that, there's no substance on earth, I think, that could ever come close to the like cathartic experience of what that is, you know. And you know, so I do like to really connect to the like tremendous value of the making of the music itself and the interconnecting of the players with each other for, you know, because we say making music, it's like music is an art form that, you know, we could hear a voice memo from a friend and speed it up double time. Or we could watch a movie. A lot of people watch movies double time to get through it. Or they could read a book, have it I mean, you know, people, whatever, that's fine. But music, I don't imagine anybody saying, oh, I really want to listen to this album, but I'm going to listen to my favorite, you know, Tool album, my favorite Beatles album, but I'd really like to get through it 3 times faster. It's like, what? No.
What's the point?
Yeah, like, what's the point? The point is music exists as it takes the time that it takes. It's an art form that is literally in that time, and every breath and every break and every pause is that experience. And when you leave, you're like, it's over. The song is done. It's complete. And I just happened to be in the same room of that experience. And, you know, with recorded music, of course, we have the benefit of being able to re-experience it, which is tremendous.
Right.
But yeah, you know, it's like, that's it. The art form itself is the time that it takes for it to occur. And you're like, well, what do I need to rush?
Yeah. So I'm guilty of going double speed through lectures and conversations. That's cool. If you can digest it that way, as long as it's Anglophone. Like if somebody has a really thick accent or it's another language, then I got to slow down. And movies, I will confess that I'll put it like 1 1/4 speed if it's a 2.5 hour movie and I've only got, you know, an hour and, you know, whatever, 2 hours or whatever. So yeah, I see that. But to, like you just said, to go into someone's music and it's like being intimate with somebody. Why would you want to fast forward your intimate exchange with someone, right? It just makes no sense, because the whole point is to be in that space, that intimacy, and take your time and let things happen. And that's what you're doing with the album or the recording that you're listening to, is let things come to you and you come to that. And it's a shared experience, even if it's a vinyl thing you put on a plate, you know, and spin it and all that kind of stuff. But it is the whole, so I'm with you. And to think about, you know, like AI's limitations, like, are you really going to fill a stadium so some guy can go boop and, you know, and then you just sit there and listen to what they recorded? Yeah, I can do that on YouTube or Spotify or whatever. And it's like, okay, but, you know, I'm not going to a show where, you know, I'm good with going to shows where somebody has an Apple and they're doing some pre-programmed things and digipack things and stuff like that. And then they have a keyboard here, and then maybe there's somebody doing a live instrument. Like Coil is a good example. They're a very strange lysergic band, and they do have a little bit of computer, and then they have a little bit of live instruments going. But that to me is acceptable, because they set that program up in advance. Or trance, psytrance, or techno. You know, they have stuff that's pre-programmed, but they're orchestrating it, and they created it prior, and now they're bringing it out. To me, that's a little more flexible. Whereas, you know, you just prompt a machine and then, you know, wash, rinse, repeat. And so I think there are limitations. And I think maybe, say, for people who are so young, I don't understand them, that, you know, we're going to come up with that, up to that rather, and say, hard pass, you know, I'm good. It was a novelty. I did that. And then, but I'm going to go see this band. I'm going to go see Sam Stokes live with her band. And you know, I want that intimate experience of a live, a living
I want to
soul.
put my phone away and just like be fully immersed. Because I think, you know, one of the things that we're also experiencing, and I hear more and more people talk about it, is like this sense of almost feeling undeserving of seeing places or experiences on their phone. And our minds, it's really hard for us to discern the difference between like a movie we watch or pictures or things that we see and the experience. Like our mind, especially as stuff gets more and more higher quality, it's like we are there, you know. And I hear more and more people talking about like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you know, I'm on social media and I see somebody, you know, going to this beautiful beach or top of this mountain or having this experience, and I wasn't there. And yet somehow I feel like I was there because I didn't deserve that. I didn't get in my car and drive to that place and get over there and do why should I reap the reward? And I'm seeing this from my couch. Wait a minute, I got to go out and climb some mountains. I got to go out and like jump in some lakes, you know? And that's the invitation of like, yes, let us go out together and let's jump in these lakes. Let's jump in these, you know, these full on, you know, adventure of life and just fully embrace, you know, our experience here on Earth is limited. It's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And, let's really just fully immerse ourselves in it. And I think music can inspire that within us. I think art can inspire that within us. I think, our friends and the people that we spend our time with can really, give us that encouraging, jolt of like, oh yeah, wait, this is my life. Oh my gosh, I got to live it. Because it's, that's it.
Yeah, for sure. I have moments of cynicism as a Gen Xer, and sometimes I imagine they talk about people when they're maybe getting ready to pass or they almost pass, and their life flashes before their eyes, and I'm thinking people in their 20s right now, when they get to that point, and God forbid, but and the life, it's going to be screen time, right? The life flashing before the eyes, it's going to be a scroll, and I'm like, don't let that be your life flashing before your eyes before you check out or before you get revived and you have the near death and you can talk about it. But then you'll be like, I'd rather go than be horrified to say, well, my whole thing was scrolling. My life review or whatever was scrolling. For me, all the crazy stuff that I did that I survived, that'll flash when, my time comes. But so it's a caveat. It's like,
it's like, I think about that all the time where it's just like, I had that even, I had that experience even, like a very visceral version of that where, I traveled to Germany quite a lot. My husband's German, so we go there, play shows there, and we were in Germany last October. And the first couple days, normally, I just try to kind of like chill to kind of get in the time zone, and like I don't like to overly commit so that you're not like having like a jet lag dinner, falling asleep with someone you haven't seen in months, and you're like, I'm sorry, I don't want to.
I'm not here. Yeah,
I'm 2% human. I'm so sorry.
Right.
So I was having that moment, and I was watching some Netflix, looking out the window and having this nice thing. And then it's just like hit me so hard. And I was like, you're on vacation in Germany, and you're telling me the best thing you can do with your time here is sit on the couch and watch it. Are you kidding? And I was like, oh, you're right. And I got right up and I put on my things and I was like, I gotta go. I'm sorry, I have to go live some life right now.
Yeah.
Even if it's just me going for a walk by myself, even if it's just going to the bakery, I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
I gotta go. Because this is not living, I gotta go. And it was such a strong, oh yeah, let's go.
That's great. Yeah, you didn't fly 6,000 miles to get sucked into the boob tube. Like get up and get out. Especially Germany, it's beautiful, right?
You've adjusted to the time zone. Get out. Go. Yeah. And like, all right, cool.
Good thing you caught yourself on that. That's important. That's important. Yeah. Sam, we're edging up on an hour on this conversation, Let's do this. Let's bring it in for a nice soft landing, and I'll ask you if there's anything in our two conversations that you feel like we need to either, it's a summative thing you want to wrap up, or if there's something that hasn't been brought in that's a little, like novelty for the conversation. How do you want to take this one out? How do you want to end this for us?
Oh,
it's a heavy question. I'm sorry.
No, I'm so grateful, truly, I am so grateful that we were able to connect and that we have found ourselves here in like hours of delightful and thoughtful and wonderful conversation. So I'm just grateful to you, and your thoughtfulness and your questions and just the ease of conversation. So, I'm content. Yeah. Okay, whatever.
Good. Well, I'm grateful to you for sharing your presence and your thoughts with us. I get first dibs on it, but then the audience itself benefits and themselves, I should say. And I don't know what else we could say. I mean, we've covered a lot of terrain, and of course, you're always welcome to come back. I can always bring you back, especially as you move through into September. Maybe in September we could have you back, and we could have an introspective kind of like reflection on what this experience was like for you. I actually love that idea now that it's gestated. And yeah. So, okay, good. So then I feel better about us bringing this one to a close then, because then we can come back in 6 months and say, hey, how did this land, and what was generated by that. So, let's do that. But it was wonderful sharing mind space with you and talking and discovering, I speak for the audience, I think, in discovering, your creative process and how you move through it and sharing that. So I appreciate that. And we've covered some philosophical things, and I think that was cool too, because that's my jazz. And so I appreciate that. And hopefully the audience, everyone, again, information down below, discovery down below, for Sam's work and, being able to access, everything that I can put together, to have there. So with that said, Sam, we will close this for now, and I'll say goodbye to you after we're done recording. But to the YouTube and Spotify folks, I'll say the same. Take care. All right, bye bye, everyone. Take care.